A pregnant woman collapsed right in the middle of her own divorce hearing. And for a second, the entire oak-paneled courtroom froze. Her husband, the man she had built a life with, didn't even twitch, didn't move to help, didn't show a shred of concern. From the gallery, his younger mistress just sat there smirking, practically glowing with that smug look of victory, convinced they had finally crushed her. What neither of them realized was that the judge held a sealed envelope that contained the DNA results, a truth powerful enough to unravel not just a marriage, but an empire. The air in courtroom 4B felt thick, a mix of antiseptic and animosity that seeped into Jessica Collins's maternity dress as she tried to breathe through it. At 7 months pregnant, everything hit harder, a hard bench beneath her spine, the relentless hum of the lights, and especially her husband's stare across the room. Daniel looked calm, put together in his $1,000 tailored suit, sitting next to his shark of a lawyer, Robert Peterson. His handsome face carried that calm, reasonable mask that hid the monster she knew lurked beneath. Jessica's eyes wandered unwillingly past him to the front row, where Victoria Beaumont sat like a predator in a crimson dress, hair glowing gold under the lights. She was everything Jessica wasn't in that moment: young, slender, smug. Her tiny smirk screamed ownership. I have him. I'll have his future. And soon I'll have your money, too. Mrs. Collins. Her lawyer, Olivia Chin, whispered. Drag her back. Focus. Judge Atwood is speaking. Jessica forced her attention forward. Judge Margaret Atwood Sharp. Fair. Known for her no-nonsense reputation, looked down over her glasses. Peterson rose smoothly, making his motion. Daniel was contesting paternity, demanding all marital assets be frozen. He claimed his wife had been unfaithful, that the baby wasn't his. The words faithful and dedicated husband almost made Jessica laugh out loud. Faithful? Dedicated? This was the man who had systematically cut her off from their accounts the second divorce papers were served. The man sitting smugly beside his mistress in public. She could feel her baby kick as if sensing the injustice, and she gripped the edge of her table, willing herself to stay upright. Olivia stood to counter, her voice steady, sharp. Jessica had sacrificed her own career to build Daniel's empire, to support him through 8 years of marriage. This was nothing more than cruelty dressed up as a legal motion. But Peterson smirked and dropped his checkmate, a court-ordered prenatal DNA test. If she had nothing to hide, why object? What he didn't expect was Olivia's calm reply. My client already consented. The results were delivered to this court this morning. For the first time, Daniel shifted in his chair, a flash of discomfort crossing his face. Even Victoria's smirk faltered. Their plan for delay and humiliation had just backfired. Judge Atwood lifted the sealed envelope from her desk. Jessica's heart hammered. She knew the truth, but the fear gnawed what if they had tampered with it? What if something went wrong? She dared one last glance at Victoria, who met her eyes with that same triumphant smile. It was the final cruelty, the smile that broke her. The room tilted. Black spots danced across her vision. And before anyone could react, Jessica collapsed to the floor. When she woke, the sharp smell of rubbing alcohol told her she wasn't in the courtroom anymore. Olivia's face appeared above her, concerned but calm. She was in the courthouse infirmary. The judge had postponed reading the results. Both she and the baby were stable. Relief washed through her. But it was bitter when Olivia confirmed what she already knew: Daniel hadn't moved when she fell. Not a step. His mistress had looked annoyed at the delay. The next 2 weeks were brutal. Daniel's lawyer filed motions, froze their accounts, had her credit card declined, her car lease payment rejected, even her rent unpaid. It was a financial chokehold designed to break her spirit. Humiliated, Jessica had to borrow money from her parents just to survive. a 34-year-old woman once celebrated as a rising architect, now completely dependent on retirement savings. It was her sister Megan who finally lit the spark again, reminding her that Daniel wasn't just divorcing her, was trying to erase her. If he had secrets, she had to find them. Back in Olivia's office, Jessica admitted what she already suspected: Daniel's fortune wasn't as clean as it seemed. Hidden accounts, shell corporations, smoke and mirrors. Olivia agreed. They needed a forensic accountant. That's how Michael Finch entered the picture. A quiet, balding man who treated money trails like poetry. The money's never gone, he told Jessica. It just changes shape. My job is to find a shadow. Together, they dug through years of statements, piecing together the ghost of Daniel's double-life jewelry. Spas, luxury trips, even fake design consultations to funnel money to Victoria. But money wasn't the only crack in Daniel's empire. Jessica kept thinking about his mother, Eleanor, who had whispered something strange to her at Arthur Collins's funeral. The foundation of this house is built on a lie. Digging deeper, Jessica discovered the truth. Arthur, the so-called titan who built Collins and Son properties, had been sterile his entire life. Daniel wasn't his biological son at all. He had no legal claim to the company or the family trust that made him powerful. Everything is empire. His identity was a fraud. When Judge Atwood granted the motion to subpoena Arthur's old medical samples, Peterson called it a fishing expedition. But Olivia's counter was devastating. Daniel himself had made lineage the center of this case. If bloodlines were so important to disown his own child, then they were just as important to the trust that gave him his fortune. By the time the courtroom reconvened, reporters had filled the back rows. Sensing blood, Jessica sat taller now, no longer the broken woman who fainted. She was a fighter. Olivia squeezed her hand as Judge Atwood prepared to read the results. The first envelope confirmed what Jessica already knew. Daniel was the father. The probability of paternity was 99%. A murmur swept the courtroom. Daniel flushed red. Peterson fumbled for control, and Victoria's smirk cracked for the first time. But Judge Atwood wasn't finished. She opened the second envelope, the Y chromosome analysis comparing Daniel to Arthur. Her words landed like a bomb. Of the 23 markers compared, there are 0 matches. Mr. Collins, you are not the biological son of Arthur Collins. Chaos erupted. Reporters scribbled furiously. The gallery gasped, and Victoria leapt to her feet. You lied to me. She spat at Daniel. Her face twisted with rage. You're nothing. You have nothing. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Daniel sat pale, shaking, muttering that it was impossible, that the test was wrong. When he tried to lunge at Jessica, the bailiffs pinned him back, his furious cries echoing through the courtroom. The great Daniel Collins, once the golden CEO, sat collapsed in his chair, his face in his hands, weeping like a child. The fallout was swift. The Collins Family Trust sued him for fraud. The board of his company fired him. The media turned him into a walking scandal, a cautionary tale of greed and deception. Jessica, on the other hand, won everything. $15 million he'd try to hide. The house, her independence. Daniel was left with nothing but monthly child support for the son he had tried to deny. Months later, Jessica gave birth to a healthy boy she named Andrew. She sold the cold glass mansion and built a new home overlooking the ocean. Starting her own small architectural firm she called J. Collins and Son. This time, the name carried honesty and resilience. Standing on her porch with her baby in her arms, watching the waves crash below, she finally felt peace. She had rebuilt her life, not on lies, but on truth. Jessica's story is proof that even when you're pushed to the absolute brink, the truth can be your greatest weapon. She didn't just survive, she dismantled an empire built on deception and created a future rooted in integrity. If her fight inspired you, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs hope, and subscribe so you won't miss the next real-life story. And tell me down in the comments, what did you think of the judge's final ruling?